Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Irama Kakarba Ampe, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's conversation on understanding the e-waste economy, what it is, why it matters, and what we as Ghanaians can and must do. To start, I would like to call on Kojo Amoya Osei, who is the Manager, Impact and Sustainability at Green Advocacy Ghana, to give us a few remarks to open the discussion. Kojo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Irama, and good morning, distinguished guests, panelists, fellow Ghanaians. On behalf of GreenAd, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome you to today's very important conversation on understanding the e-waste economy, what it is, why it matters, and what Ghanaians must do. At GreenAd, our commitment to sustainability goes beyond just research and implementing interventions. We think where we can make real change is if we can cause some change in the system. Ghana is emerging as one of the regional leaders in e-waste management, shifting from highly informal operations, hazardous practices, towards a more structured and sustainable system. And this transformation began quite some time back in the early 2000s with a lot of work in the Abobloshi area, which was a major hotspot, once ranked amongst the world's top 10 most polluted sites. And one of the pioneering forces in this transition has been GreenAd, working in the past on the Ghana e-waste country assessment, the socioeconomic and feasibility study in the sector, and then also doing some work around health exposure of these informal workers in the industry. And this has fed into developments in the national e-waste strategy for the country, the Hazardous and Electronic Waste Management and Control Act, and other interventions like the Abobloshi Recycling Center, led by GreenAd in partnership with the Greater Accra Scrap Dealers Association, with support from the EPA, MESTI, that's the Ministry of Environment, the National Youth and Gratis Foundation. And some other interventions that, currently are going on, the pilot incentive system where scrap dealers are paid for defined e-waste streams, and many, many others. It's not only GreenAd working in this space. We've had sustainable SRI, the Sustainable Recycling Industries project, started somewhere 2019 and it was just completed in this year. We've had GIZ working in the space. We have the Africa Environmental Health and Pollution Management Program being spearheaded by the EPA. We have organizations like Electrode Recycling Ghana doing some interesting stuff in the recycling space. We have City Waste, Median Environmental Services, Zeal Technologies, Zoil, Mountain Research, and a host of other organizations. Yet, with all this, the sector has operated in the shadows of the ordinary Ghanaian. And we believe that it is time to change that. And this webinar is it's not just about identifying the problem, but we want to build a shared understanding, want to spark bold ideas and catalyze action for the everyday Ghanaian. So we are proud to convene this. We look forward to a rich discussion that would illuminate the path towards a cleaner, safer, and more inclusive e-waste economy in Ghana. So thank you very much for joining us, and let's dive in. Over to you, Irama.
Thank you very much, Kojo, for your remarks. And so to help us dive into the topic, we have three very distinguished individuals. who have graciously agreed to share their knowledge and their experiences with us on this topic. We have Mr. Gerald Edu Jemfi, who is the head of the Research and Evaluation Unit at the E-Waste Management Fund. We also have Dr. Daniel Ofori. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School. And then we also have Dr. Vincent Tre, who is the team lead at the E-Waste Management Program Implementation Unit at the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. So we will give each of our panel members the opportunity to introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Gerald Edu Jemfi. Mr. Edu Jemfi, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, fellow panelists and our moderator, and then everybody else. It's a privilege to represent the fund and also to help educate people on the e-waste menace and what the sector entails. I'm Gerald Edu Jemfi, a chartered accountant by profession. Worked in the finance space for about 10 years, and I joined the fund in 2021. Currently the head of research plan and monitoring and evaluation. I think I bring to this panel some perspective on what the fund is supposed to be doing in the management of the e-waste sector in Ghana. Because there's no rep from EPA and the ministry, I think so Dr. Che will help me on the ministry side, but then I'll have to do the EPA and the fund aspect of the work today. So I'm hoping for a fruitful discussion, and I hope that at the end of this webinar, at least some I think Kojo mentioned that we've worked in the shadows for quite some time. It's true, because you need to build some infrastructure, get some major stakeholders to get along with you before you go to the wider population. So I think today will be one of the first steps in addressing some of these things for people to know why we exist and what we do and how to manage the e-waste menace in Ghana. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edu Jemfi. Dr. Ofori, please, can we hear from you? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rama, and good morning to everyone. My name is Daniel Ofori from the School of Business, University of Cape Coast. In addition to my work in academia, I have also been involved in electronic waste management projects. In fact, way back 2015 with the Straight Africa Green. So Dr. Chere is someone I've worked with on some projects. So I also bring on board the perspective of academia, and also even working in the sector, some of the things we found and what we think should be done as a country to consolidate all the good progress and the successes we have chalked to be able to move this sector to the heights that we are expecting. Thank you, Rama. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ofori. Dr. Chere, last but certainly not the least, please, over to you. Thank you. Dr. Chere, please, you are muted. Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, as the moderator already mentioned, and standing on all the protocols that my previous panelists have used, good morning to everybody. And my name is Vincent Tre. Simply called Vincent is okay. I have been working on this e-waste space since 2012, and currently, as the moderator nicely narrated, that I represent the team on the Ministry of Environment e-waste program. So we have been implementing the incentive payment system that we are collaborating and working hand in hand with Greenard. Greenard has been
one of our main collaborators in the space. And Kojo is right that Green Earth has pioneered most of the initiative that started with Green Earth, from Pure Earth to KFW to GIZ. If you want to see a standing figure around it, it has always been Green Earth, who started from the beginning and are still working within the space. I think it will be interesting to share and to look at the topic of e-waste financing, the e-waste economy. At times, I believe that we have always highlighted the negative implications of e-waste. And we've also highlighted the positive implication of e-waste, but we have still not seen how we can deal with it, and then what is the actual thing that we need to do. And I think that this makes this discussion very interesting. I think that your questions will help, your input will help, your comment will also help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tre. And now we will really start the conversation around what exactly the e-waste economy is and how we all can contribute to ensure sustainable development of e-waste in Ghana. And so my first question will go to Dr. Ofori. Could you please define the e-waste economy in the Ghanaian context? And beyond just waste, what are the key economic and resource recovery aspects that make this a significant sector for Ghana's development? And also, what are the unique pressures or opportunities that exist here in Ghana compared to other regions?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. So I think a lot has been done, as you rightly mentioned, from 2005. We know the sector holds a lot of potential. Now, when you look globally, when we are talking about even e-waste economy, we already know what is happening in the global space with issue of digitalization. So almost every sector, there is some digitalization agenda driving a growth and ensuring efficiency to make sure work is done as fast as we can see. So e-waste is something that has come to stay, and it will continue to grow. Now, talking about it as an economy, especially in the Ghanaian context, in fact, is an economy, and adding the word economy is very important, because you have a whole system, a whole sector that is housing thousands of Ghanaians who are engaging in door-to-door collection of what usually they refer to as condemn, collecting everything electronic. Those who are dismantling, we have those who are processing, we have those who are engaging in recycling and upcycling, and then the eventual disposal. So it's a whole chain, and even you have those who are doing repairing, and those who also recover valuable parts and components to be sold to other organizations. So when you look at the whole chain, you realize that it's a whole big sector that if we harness all the potential as a country, we can create a lot of jobs for these young men and women who are working or whose livelihood depend on the various jobs that they do in this area. And the question you asked, if the first one talking about what the economy is, and the other one talking about why it matters. Yes, it matters, because if you heard the previous speaker, Kojo, mentioning, it's a whole big economy, and a lot of people depend on this economy for their livelihood. Meanwhile, we all know what happens in this space. Thankfully, we have all these. Dr. Tre is here. A lot of studies have been conducted, and you can find the various dangers that come with the work they do. At the same time, it matters because it is a whole huge mining area. And when I'm talking about mining area, I'm not referring to the other one, but this one, we are talking about secondary mining, where you have a lot of resources thrown away, and you have a group of people who think that there is life in this garbage that we see, and therefore they have to pick it up and then bring it back to life. So this economy holds the potential to bring a lot of resources back to life. And now we are talking about circular economy. Wherever you go, you hear circularity. I always say that these guys over there are actually implementing the circular economy agenda. Because if you are talking about circular economy, waste is equal to food. So what they are doing is to bringing back the waste to become food for other organizations. So in a way, whichever way they themselves think they are contributing, they are actually implementing the closed loop system that we are looking at. The sector, as I already mentioned, if you look at some of the statistics provided by UNDP report and all the numerous studies, it will tell you that you have about 35,000 people, if I'm not over-exaggerating, directly employed in a sector nationwide. And those who are indirect, there are several of them running into hundreds of thousands. And this sector is not only made up of the formal and the informal, the formal sector, but you also have the informal guys who actually control about 90 to 95% of the whole activities. And that is why we should reposition this sector as a country. If you look at the environmental and health dangers of the work they do, the unsafe burning of wires, because it is an under-resourced sector. Fortunately or unfortunately, it is a sector that requires a lot of financing, and I'm happy that Dr. Chair was mentioning financing. How do they get access to simple technology to help them with the work they do, so that they can handle and manage or reduce the unsafe handling and how they are exposing themselves to the lead and mercury and the pollution of water bodies? Sometimes, I think in one of my lecture, I was mentioning that we see them there that, oh, once I'm not staying close to, for example, Agbogbloshie or this site, you are safe. We are all not safe because some of the markets are close to these areas. And there are research that has found some contamination in soil, and the foodstuff that are sold in these areas are also even exposed to the ground. So eventually they find themselves in there. So we are all at risk. It is not a matter of somebody is more exposed than others. We are all at risk. Also, this sector matters because when it comes to electronic waste generation, in fact, the latest global, the e-waste monitor report tells us that you have, by 2030, we should be expecting about 82 billion electronic waste generated globally. In 2022 alone, we are talking about 62 million tons. And this particular monitor has been projecting, and all their projections usually are true. So that tells you that the problems as we see them, the potential as we see them, will only keep growing. So whether we do something good, whether we do something bad, the future is still awaiting. And I'm happy of the opportunity side. Well, the threats, we already know them in terms of the rising importation of all these electronic waste from the West or from the developed countries, even though there are laws prohibiting illegal transshipment or the shipment of these, but we still find them. Now, the opportunities are enormous. Thankfully, we have a space with a lot of stakeholders, well knowledgeable, coming up with all the laws that we need as a country. If you look at 2016, where we had our Hazardous Electronic Waste Control and Management Act, Act 917, supported by the LI. And of course, Ghana being the first to even launch the technical guidelines on environmentally sound e-waste management, which was spearheaded by SRI. So you realize that the potential is there as a country. All these are skills or knowledge base that can be leveraged to revive or to see growth in this sector. We also see Ghana, for all this while, if you look at the media, the reportage, we have been tagged as the largest site in West Africa and one of the largest even in Africa. So I think that already the network and the expertise, both formal and informal, is right. We just need an upskill to see these guys transiting from the kind of work or the approach they use now to one that is more sustainable. It is also an opportunity to even attract the youth. In one of our projects, the electronic waste management project, which I have to also mention that it was also funded by the EU, which was started from 2018 and ended in 2022. But we did an awareness creation involving the technical, the TVET. And if you look at the interest these young guys shown, that tells you that if we reposition this sector, it is even going to attract these young guys who may not necessarily want to be involved in, let's say, going around, but they want to see themselves in a tech sector, putting together, building robots and all kinds of things. But the interest they showed tells us that there is enough potential, or that interest is there to attract these guys in there. We, as a country, we are talking about even STEM education, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And in one example, one instance, my boy comes from school with computing. He's learning the part of a computer, and it is in a book. I'm just using this as an example to open or talk about one opportunity that we are missing as a country. So I asked that, okay, so these parts of a computer, have you seen them physically? And he says no, because what is inside their school are the ones that they are using to learn. So there is no way they will be going to open it or break it down for them to really know the actual part of the computer. So they only know them in the paper or in a book. So my involvement in e-waste management, so I have some broken down laptops, and I picked one, got some tools, and I said, let's open it. So after opening it, he was happy, because then he was seeing the real motherboard. He was seeing processor. He was seeing RAM. What is RAM? Because you only see it on paper. So I'm saying this because we are doing well with our STEM education. We, around the country, Ministry of Education is building centers for STEM education. But there is also an industrial sector that is already engaged, if not fully. So how do we blend these two? How do we get the electronic waste sector supporting our STEM education, even with low-cost teaching aids, like the example I was giving, to help these young men and women who are into STEM education, who are ready to build robotics engineering, to understand the idea of engineering, which I think that these are areas we can easily leverage and connect. So to round up with the first point, I think that we have come far as a country, especially with our e-waste business. Nationwide, everybody is aware that there is e-waste. The awareness is there because a lot of projects have been conducted, awareness have been created. So one way or the other, we cannot say we are not aware. We are aware of the things these guys are doing. We are aware of the business side. We are aware of the potential, and we are also aware of the dangers. So I think that it is time for all of us to rise up, implement the positive outcomes and the various suggestions or recommendations that have been proposed in various projects that we see around. So I will put an end to the first point for now, and I'll wait for any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ferry. I think you have really situated us quite firmly in what exactly the e-waste economy is, touching on various aspects, from the dangers to, the concept of circular economy, to how we can use e-waste to support education, which I think is a very good point to be made. So just segueing from some of the dangers that you touched on, Dr. Chere, this question is to you. And based on your experience on the ground over the past couple of years, how would you characterize the current state of the e-waste economy? What are the most immediate and the most pressing environmental and public health risks associated with the predominantly informal recycling practices that you observe or you have observed over the years?
Thank you very much, moderator. I think that some of the things that we have always seen around the topic and around the discussion of e-waste and why Agbogbloshie is always highlighted is the issue of how recycling or recovery activities are done and the exposure to the human health and the environmental hazard that it poses. Clearly, what we have seen, and if you go through a lot of literature before 2024, before 2012, 2018, if you go through literature, you will see the kind of levels of toxic substances that are being uptaken by the people that are working within the spaces. At times, it is not only those who are working within the spaces that are the issues for us, but those who are standbyers, those who have got nothing to do with the activities of recycling, and then the children that are even at the site of these activities, the kind of materials that they have inhaled knowingly or unknowingly. You will see that most of the scientists have given the narration on the pathways that people take in some of these hazardous components or hazardous substances. We have measured the levels. We've done a lot of advocacies on some of the issues. You have seen a lot of testimonies that people will tell you before the Green Art project, before the MST project, when I cough, you will see blood, you will see colors in my phlegm, and with this intervention, this has happened. So we have seen the implications for over the period. The funny thing is that these implications that we have seen, what have we done on these implications? What aspect, what are we doing? Is it people that we are asking them to stop the activities that they are doing? Or are we saying that, okay, let's improve it and make it better? Let's all bear in mind, beside the health environment that we all talk about, the underlying thing in there is livelihood. We can all sit here and talk about that is health. It is not good. The point that underlines everything is livelihood. If you ask the people there, stop work. And before I started my PhD work and I visited Agbogbloshie, I got there, and then my first impression is that government should close down this place. But when you go inside and you start talking to the individuals that are operating there, these are individuals that are employing over 120 people. These are individuals, if you look at Agbogbloshie, just Agbogbloshie alone, we have not extrapolated to other regions, but just look at Agbogbloshie alone, and you have almost about more than 6,000 people working within that enclave. And these people who are working within this enclave are remitting money to their colleagues, to their family up north. So when we talk about the health implications, when we talk about the hazard, when we talk about the pollution, I believe that those who are working there, they see the implications. I believe that those who are working there, they feel the implication on their health. And those of us who are talking about, we feel it. But when you go to Agbogbloshie, ask yourself, you will see banks there. The place is polluted, but the banks are there because there is money there. When you go to Agbogbloshie, you see food vendors there. The place is contaminated, but they are there. So when we talk about the health implication, we want to look at the health implication vis-a-vis livelihood. We want to look at the environmental implication vis-a-vis livelihood. And all of us contribute to it. I believe that the ministry comes out with policy, we contribute to it with it. If I ask the question, where is your last phone that you dispose of? I believe that all of us will not find where we dispose of our phones. If we go further and we ask ourselves, where is your first gadget that you bought, electronic? All of us, we gave it to them. But at the end of the day, we all draw back and then we push only the blame on the informal sector at Abubulishi and talk about their health and talk about the environment that they are polluting. And we take ourselves out conveniently just to make sure that, okay, they are the problem. But I believe that the problem comes from you and me, the elites. And I have always said this, if not for the people of Abubulishi, possibly we might be buying iron rods at a higher price than what we are buying now. If not for the people of Abubulishi or the informal sector, possibly we might be buying copper more than the price that we are currently buying. So as much as we look at the negative, the health, and personally, I'm graduating from that idea of you only looking at it from the point of the health, the hazard, the environment to livelihood. And I think that is what underlines everything. If they have what they eat, can we put in system that will be attractive enough? And I like what Dr. Daniel said. How do we even incorporate some of the things that they are doing into our normal curriculum? All of us want our children to go and read science and read, but this is an area that is of much interest. Can you imagine that we have technical or vocation school students coming up, being able to dismantle these items in environmentally sound manner? What it could mean to all of us. People are making money out of it. When we talk about the figures, doctor said that we are predicting about 82 billion electronic waste coming up. But in there is also opportunity. In there is also a problem. How do we marry the two? And maybe as we go further, we will see what we will need to marry the two. How do we deal with the problem and harness the potential that it has? And then how do we finance some of these thoughts that we have in mind? We have depend on a lot of foreign aid. We have depend on projects, but in China, how do we finance some of these things? And I believe that is why Gerard Edudjemfi is also on the line. But I believe maybe this discussion should not just only end with a discussion highlighting the problem that e-waste causes, but the way forward that we can outline and we can push from our point of view. I think I will end here and then maybe we can.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I think that really segues nicely into a question for Mr. Edudjemfi, which was around how do we finance some of these solutions? And from the e-waste fund's perspective or the government's perspective, how do we do some of these things? Because that is why the fund is set up. And so, Mr. Edudjemfi, this question is to you. We have seen that the government has been involved in quite a number of interventions over the years in the e-waste space. And so with that sort of interest, we believe that it is something of a priority for the nation in terms of the government's objectives. And so why is effectively managing and formalizing the e-waste economy a national priority? And how does it intersect with broader goals like job creation, as has been mentioned, environmental protection, education, public health, and overall sustainable development?
So I won't want to go back to what the problems are and how the industry is, because at this point, I think everybody is interested in how do we move forward. And in moving forward, one of the solutions was from government side was the legislations. And in every, to be able to effectively and sustainably manage anything, you must have a financing mechanism that has to back this thing. And it has to be sustainable enough to be able to go into the future. A lot of donor support came in into trying to get this sector sanitized. But the government also had to put in some financing mechanism, and that's what birthed the e-waste fund. Now, with our peculiar economic environment, mostly we don't do much of production of electronic equipment in country. So most of the electrical and electronic equipment come from abroad. So government decided to identify how the electronic and electrical equipments that actually come into the country. So with our EPA did some work, so we were able to identify about 365 items that electronic and electrical equipment that's coming to the country. So there was a need to put some levy on it to be able to take some money, at least normally what we call funeral and birth. At the point where the items are coming into the country, we begin to plan for its eventual death or demise or end of life. And then we look at how we can sustainably manage the waste that is generated thereof. So identifying these 365 items and putting a levy on them, the levy at 916, as earlier mentioned, was the first legal instrument, and then now it's been reenacted as part of the EPA Act, the Environmental Protection Authority Act 1124. That was just passed in January. So now the fund major mandate is to provide financing for sustainable e-waste management in the country. And then they carefully added the second mandate to it, that we are supposed to reduce the adverse impact of the e-waste on human health and the environment. So clearly government understands that people in the sector will be exposed to some hazardous items, but we have to also take steps to help improve their livelihoods, because we've seen what initially happened at Abu Dhabi and elsewhere, and in correcting that, there has to be a conscious effort not to take them out completely, as Dr. Chair said. As soon as you get to Abu Dhabi, your first impression is that why is government still condoning this action by allowing them to be there? One, these are livelihoods. These are a lot of teeming youth that have found some gainful employment in these areas. What they are doing wrong is where they try to do the recycling, dismantle, take out the valuables they need, and then right where they do their business, they leave the remaining hazardous items to the in the environment. That is where the problem is. We have a good collection base from them. So what we do is that, how do we encourage them to be able to collect these items and not attempt to dismantle them in those crude practices that they've been performing, but then get them into the formalized system. So the Act had set some disbursement criteria for the fund. So even though we're managing the fund, we are a bit restricted as to how the flexibility of moving the funds around. So in the scheme of things, the fund is supposed to put 20% of the funds collected from these levies into collection and collection-related activities. This is where we say that the money is to incentivize them to be able to bring the items that they have collected, cables, whatever, so that they don't have to go and bend it and cause environmental havoc for all of us, but then channel it through a collection center, such as what Greenhard has been providing. Then those collected waste can then be channeled to proper recycling facilities and disposal facilities in country. So this is how, and in doing that, I mean, some of them you will realize that, and there are testimonies to that Dr. Chair mentioned, and even from Greenhard, you can attest to it, that people have seen much improvement in their livelihood because there's less burning. Even the pollution levels at Abu Dhabi, I'm sure if we should go back and do some testing again, we will realize that the initial levels have come and have improved tremendously. I mean, if you've been able to take out about 600 tons of cables from the system, it means that those are 600 tons of cables that could have been bent in Accra alone. And it means that there's some improvement. I mean, the people who are engaged in their livelihoods, they have ancillary people, the children who go and sell water, the market that is just next to it. And bear in mind, Aboburusi also has a residence, a slum next to it. So people are living there. So, I mean, improvement in their livelihood, their health, and then reduce environmental degradation is largely improved because at least when you take out some of these items from the system, it improves some of these conditions. Two, the fund also then has some funds allocated for collection, disbursement, collection, recycling. There's also some that goes to some government agencies like the EPA, who is the regulator in this case and the technical lead in implementing the Act 917 and thereof the EPA Act 1124. All of these, and then MESTI as well, which is a policy, the policy institution that gives direction as to how these sectors are supposed to be managed and the players in there. So putting all of this together, we realize that we have a comprehensive way of financing these activities and these services by these people to be able to continuously provide a service there. And then the eventual benefit is that we are able to sanitize the environment, improve their livelihoods, and then also get these boys continuously employed. I mean, if you're able to improve our recycling and disposal, all these improve the value chain in this, what it means is that we're able to then have people coming into the recycling space. We have researchers, we have Dr. Dandofori mentioned the TVET people. Now, at least when you have people now coming to work in these recycling plants and factories, what are the minimum educational standards or qualification capacity they must have? These TVET institutions will be able to provide that. So the whole value chain is lubricated with the establishment of the fund, so that all of these processes are properly paid for in a sustainable financing mechanism, where we have these levies paid on these items coming at the port. Now we are also looking to extend what is currently being the upscaling industry in the Ghana, what they are doing with some of these waste and generating them into new products. If we can also bring them onto the food, we have companies that have come in that are also manufacturing and assembling in country. We can also capture all of these people, get them to pay something for the eventual end of life of these products that they are putting on the market, increase the pool, and then be able to deal with some of these issues in the value chain. One of the things that the fund is also supposed to do is supposed to be able to pay for research into sustainable methods into how we can upcycle some of these items, prolong their life, how to do some training for do public education and sensitization. We've been a bit quiet on these because, for instance, if you do a lot of public engagement as to what's the issue, what waste we are currently in the system and what we need to do, you must they also have an infrastructure base that will be able to uptake the waste that is coming, so that when you are educating people as to take not to even the scrap dealers not to engage in the same old practices that they are doing, there must be facilities to be able to take these waste from them and then be able to properly handle them. So even though we've been quiet on the public space, on the stakeholder side, the crucial stakeholder side, there's still a lot of engagement that has gone in there. There's been a lot of training for scrap dealers in Accra and other regions. There's been how to bring up the recycling capacities of our recycling companies in country and all of that. So all of these are helping to be able to get a very robust infrastructure on the ground with the right capacities to be able to deal with the fractions that will be generated from these e-waste collections, then be able to properly process them and treat them. So some of these things are ongoing, but it's been on the quiet side, and rightly so that we're able to get the base ready. Now, the fund is also this year and into the third quarter and early next year, we'll be doing a lot of public engagement to be able to raise more awareness as to what the issues are and where you can send your waste that is being generated. And as much as possible, we want to involve the scrap dealers, but we also want to limit them in areas where they have limited capacity, especially when they move from collection into trying to dismantle and recycle some of these items. That is where mostly the problem is. And they are all interested in what would benefit them, what they can get some funding, some monies from in the private sector. But the government also is incentivizing the system so that the hazardous items that are actually causing the problem, we would then uptake those things and give it to proper treatment and recycling facilities to be able to handle them. So that at least if they happen to have some of these thermoplastics, if it's the CRT glass or batteries or anything, these items that they cannot sell openly on the market, then we can also be able to, the fund can incentivize those items for it to be channeled into our collection centers, for it to be properly managed. And so basically that is what the fund is supposed to be doing, and the fund has been doing. We currently also piloting a collection of lamps and screens in Koforidua with Eco Partners, and we are extending that to Accra with Greenard and then Caritas as well, so that we, as part of the fractions that the PIU is doing, we will also increase those fractions, be able to collect a bit more of these hazardous fractions from the system, and then put them into proper recycling and treatment to be able to reduce the adverse impact of the waste on human health and the environment. I think, thank you, and then probably if there are questions, then we'll be able to take them, and then we'll move on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Edujemfi. So before I move on, I'll just like to kindly remind everyone that if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the chat. And when we get to the Q&A session, we will try to address all of your questions and all of your comments. So up to this point, we have had really what the e-waste economy is all about, particularly the value chain. So we've had mention of collection, recycling, upcycling, disposal, repair, refurbishment, etc. We've also heard about the environmental and public health challenges, and also challenges relating to keeping the livelihood of the informal recyclers who are involved in the sector. We have also heard that there are numerous opportunities that are coming up in terms of formalizing the e-waste economy in Ghana. So Dr. Chere, this question is to you. What do you think are the biggest operational challenges hindering the growth of a safe and profitable formal e-waste sector in Ghana, and in terms of the different aspects of the value chain that we have? And are there any specific Ghanaian innovations or business models that are showing promise in overcoming these challenges or barriers? Thank you.
Thank you. Your question is very overloaded, but let's see what we can do there. Let me pick it along the value chain. When it comes to the collection, what we have seen over the period is a very reliable system that the individual, the informal sector can trust. If they can trust that you will be there to collect at an incentive price, they will not turn it to the improper way of doing things. Once there is an assurance that, hey, when you bring it, we will give you this amount, they are able to do it. The problem is consistency, even in some of these approaches. I believe that you can testify there are periods or times that the scrap dealers will come to you with the materials and you don't have money to pay them. And I've raised the point that the underlying point that is livelihood. So if you don't have money to pay him and he can go and destroy it or do it in a way that he can get money for, then you are indirectly telling you that go and do the practices that you are doing. So that aspect we have to look at. When it comes to that same aspect, consistent source of financing. I believe that if we have a consistent source of financing, they will always want to bring you the items. We have seen over the period that when it comes to valuable items of value, we don't have a problem as Ghana. But when it comes to the hazardous aspect, that is where we have a problem as Ghana. So is there a deliberate policy to take care of that aspect, that as Ghana, as our service to our country, to the health of people, our idea will be to deal with the most hazardous components and leave the ones that are already making business sense to the sector to handle. Then we can deal with that issue. When it comes to also the same collection centers, I believe that we cannot sit down and wait for the e-waste fund to establish collection centers in every country or in every corner of society. It will take investors like Ghanaians to build up those collection centers and collect on behalf of the e-waste fund, whilst e-waste fund takes their resources to finance some of this collection. Because at the end of the day, bear in mind, Ghana is not only in Accra. Is there a collection center? If they go out there and do publicity and say that, well, we are now collecting e-waste and I'm in Takoradi and I don't know where to keep my e-waste, who do you think I'll give it to? Is it not the same condemned person I'll give it to? So is there opportunity? This is an opportunity for the private sector to also invest in these areas where there are no collection centers. I believe that from where we stand in implementing the Ministry of Environment KFW program, there is a business case for collection centers. Now, you don't need anybody to tell you that it makes business sense to be a collection center, because once you get the necessary permit, it means that EPA can track your activities. It means that the fund administration can track your activities. So we will need that kind of collaboration from the private sector also to make that necessary investment. At least, as I've said, for the collection, for transportation, we have seen a clear business sense or a business case for that. However, the most difficult place that we have still not been able to find our rhythm is when it comes to the recycling, where it has been that we don't have the necessary investment in the sector. Bear in mind, those who started the e-waste activities only concentrated on the valuable fractions. They only concentrated on the valuable fraction. What is of value to them? That is where their concentration was on in. They have not paid attention to the hazardous component. And this is where it creates that environmental and health problem for our society. So if you want to deal with that situation, we will need to really get that place solved. And we need to get that kind of investment. We need that kind of support. What we have seen is that possibly there are interest, there are willingness, but because it requires huge investment, we will need some kind of support to really invest in that sector, in that area, providing some kind of machinery, providing some kind of soft loans for people to buy into these machines and provide us service. We are collecting materials, but to what extent can we keep the materials that we are collecting? If we collect and collect and collect and we don't have avenue to recycle, then our collection will come to a standstill that we will get e-waste packed in our facilities, but we cannot recycle. So one area that we will need is that aspect. And I'll reiterate my earlier point and the point that was shared by Dr. Ofori, that we need to make conscious effort, because that is also an operational gap. We need to make conscious effort to incorporate the curriculum of e-waste into our technical education, because possibly if we get people who are exposed to understand the workings, to understand how to do safe dismantling, we might be making a headway. I think that there are more to add, and I will leave the floor also to my colleagues. If you leave the chance to me, I'll speak a lot.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Chair. Dr. Ufori, we haven't heard from you in a while, so this question is to you. I think there are a number of other countries who are also, well, e-waste management is not peculiar to Ghana. There are other countries are also dealing with the issue. There are some that have gone quite ahead in implementing certain measures to safely deal with the issue across, the environment lens, health lens, livelihood lens, etc. And so, what are some of these successful policy frameworks or technological innovations in e-waste management that could offer quite valuable lessons for Ghana? And to add to that, what research is needed to locally inform better practices and policies? Because if you want to undertake certain interventions, you cannot just go in blindly. You need evidence to support whatever strategy that you want to formulate. So please help us with this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. As usual, the questions are in about 2-3 hours just listening. So let me pick the first aspect, the successful policy frameworks. And as you rightly mentioned, the challenge of electronic waste, I'm sure, has already started way back in some countries. And if you look at the EU and other Western nations, they are far advanced. And I know that some of the legislations we have in Ghana has mainly been influenced by what they are doing. One of them is the extended producer responsibility. And I'm happy Dr. Chia was mentioning about the issue of investment, intentional investment. This is a sector that needs huge investment because we have a lot of people whose livelihood depends on this sector. We cannot only talk about the dark side and leave out the food that people must also depend, the fact that they depend on it to feed their families. So EPR can be looked at, and it has worked in these countries. Extended producer responsibility. I think just this month or so, I saw, because it's something that I've been following up in the country, I saw MEST, now MEST, doing something with the World Bank Group in terms of how Ghana can have its version of the extended producer responsibility. In the European countries, they have implemented this, and several countries have adopted, covering electronics, textiles, end-of-life vehicles, batteries, tires, and others. And it is working for them. They have several models of the extended producer responsibility. The individual responsibility scheme is there. They also have the collective scheme. So the point is that as a country, how best can we also reform or channel or find a way to create our own path or pathway to ensure that we connect with manufacturers of these devices? Some of these countries, the manufacturers are right there. So it's very easy to bring them together. We have a case where the parent manufacturers find themselves in other countries, and then we find ourselves in the downstream, mainly enjoying what they have done. So how do we create our own EPR system that will work for us? Because if you look at the whole concept of EPR, extended producer responsibility, it's about financial responsibility, physical responsibility, operational responsibility. So if, as a country, we financially absorb the responsibility which is supposed to be borne by a producer, then it means that we are ready to also go ahead to tackle the issue of the physical responsibility and all those areas. So how best can we bring together the manufacturers, especially those brands that we commonly find in our space? How best can we bring them together? Because there are other countries, it's in even Africa, it's also working. In Kenya, for example, they have a model like this that Dell, I know Dell computers, they have something in there where they are collecting back products related to their brands. So that is one of them. We also talk about the Basel Convention. In fact, it's one of the conventions that has also informed our Hazardous and Electronic Waste Control and Management Act. It's one of them. Most of the workshops and all those things we attended, we mostly made reference to certain key sections of this. And it has also helped the country a lot to come out this far with all these legislations and then the regulations. You can talk about the advanced eco-levy, which Mr. Bidemfi was talking about, technical guidelines. So the frameworks globally has also influenced us to get our own local versions, which has volume or a lot of insights, guidelines. If we implement them fully, we should see Ghana as a hub, not just painting a negative picture, but this time around, attracting the whole world to come and see the positive things we are doing. To also talk about some of the innovations, because they are also linked together in a way. And I think in my earlier submission, I made mention of, if you are talking about electronics, then you cannot leave out even the TVET institutions, because that is what other countries are doing. They have tried as much as possible to make sure that their technical education is well grounded and capacitating all the people in there to understand what electronics, what it means, and how to put them together to create or even upcycle and create other products out of it. So right after school, the guy has a job to even do. And learning, most often these things can also serve as learning tools for what we call reverse engineering. China is where they are today, because if you look at the global movement of even electronic waste, they generate waste and at the same time they import waste. When they import, they use it as a learning tool. They are breaking them down to see what has gone into it, how we can also create the same thing. So if we find ourselves in a certain space where we are seen as a hub for electronic waste, then maybe we can rewrite the story again and start this, for example, I mentioned of our STEM education. Our STEM education. Again, how do we talk about low-cost dismantling and separation technologies? Because the space, they actually need the infrastructure to be able to work and even create more from what currently they are doing. If you use burning as a means, how do you get the quality out of it? You will not. So a lot of effort is wasted at the end. So how do we even create some of these low-cost dismantling and separation technologies for them? In Rwanda, they have tried as much as possible to control and rechannel all their electronic waste to a central recycling facility. And one thing they are also doing is that when it comes to even basic schools, the computers they use, it is one that is refurbished from these areas. So they don't need to worry themselves. Some of these computers, it is sometimes a few components that is damaged. They refurbish and rechannel it back to these basic schools to be used for learning. So I think that if we actually want people to show interest, if we want a sector to thrive, then government has a very big role to play in creating a demand, because we know that government has the biggest budget when we are talking about procurement. So if a demand is created, if a need is created, I'm sure supply is already intact. It will find its own way. Then, of course, the other part, talking about research. If you want to talk about research that has been done in electronic waste, Ghana is among the top. And Dr. Che was also talking about it. In fact, there are publications, he has been involved. Some of us have also been involved. A lot of studies have gone down. And to tell you that we need this kind of research on that, I really have no idea, because the data is there. Maybe in order to say something to respond, maybe going forward, we can look at getting real material flow analysis. Of course, it has been done, but these are maybe the areas we should be doing more studies to rather probably get data to support investors. Since we are talking about private sector investor, the investor will want to know that if I make investment of this amount within this number of years, I should be able to recoup my money back. So maybe we can do research into these areas, business model or business planning, to help investors understand the dynamics that if I put in this amount of money, this is how much I am going to get out, because then that is the one way we can also attract private investment into these areas, because usually they are not clear. It is very risky area. They see it as very risky. If I push in my money, how do I get my money back? And it is even one of the reasons why banks, and to even add to it, in one of our electronic waste management projects, we brought Car Bank on board when we were talking about the issue of financing. And at the end, if you look at the whole thing, it tells you that these guys has no place, because this is the facility we have. Present these assets, or show this balance sheet, or show this records, and we can give you this. But at the end, if you look at the sector and the peculiar circumstances under which they work, are they able to produce the kind of information or the kind of document that is required by banks to access funds? No, it is not there. So we can always talk about bringing them together and then we talk and leave. But the reality is that it's difficult to assess, because the banks find these areas as risky areas to invest. As risky areas to invest. So maybe getting the data-rich evidence to support the lucrativeness of the area can also attract private investment. And even when we are talking about foreign direct investment, these are the areas I expect our government officials, when they go out there to woo investors, they should also be talking about, because it is a very big challenge and also opportunity for us as a country. So we should not only be talking about investing in other areas like agric, but let's also look at our electronic waste economy or electronic waste sector. So let me stop here for now, and I will address other concerns as and when other questions arise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Furry. I think my next question, which would be my last but one question, would be to all of our panel members. And that is really, we've heard what the opportunities are available. Dr. Furry just ended with the fact that, banks see it as a risky area to invest in, as well as certain private entities. And so if, there's anyone on the call who, is thinking of investing or thinking of setting up a business model or a business solution in the sector, what specific actions can they take to set this up, to scale up, and also to create green jobs? And I think for each of our panel members, if you can take it from your perspective, Mr. Edujemfi from the fund perspective, Dr. Chere from MEST's perspective, and then Dr. Ofori from academia. Thank you. So we'll start with Mr. Edujemfi. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So from our side, I think and rightly put it, the e-waste recycling space is a bit risky for most of the banks. I mean, for what is worth, that is why the fund is there, to be able to incentivize the sector, so that if you have to recycle CRTs or these hazardous items, there is no way you're going to be able to make profit. Break even will be something that is difficult. So the fund is here to be able to pay for those services, so that we're able to incentivize the private sector to be able to now make the necessary investment. And with the backing of the fund and the inflows that are coming in from these levies, even if you have to go to the bank and the bank has to come to us to sort of provide some guarantee that this company is recycling fractions from which the fund has given to them, it should be able to it makes it easier for us to be able to give those guarantees that payments will be made through those banks, to be able to, for them to be able to recoup their investment, their loans, their repayments, and then the company can also be able to then get the necessary investment. But more critically, the fund is also trying to enhance the recycling capacities of these of our recyclers by going to empower these at least one a year for the next 5 years, to be able to acquire the needed machinery to be able to process the fractions that have been collected, so that we don't have to be able to keep collecting and storing, but then we're able to collect, recycle, do the whole complete loop, that from collection to final disposal. Then we'll be able to learn the valuable lessons, and then be able to expand the scope of these activities. So the fund is prepared to help the private sector by helping them acquiring machinery, which will pay over a period, and then be able to then build their capacities in that area. Also offer some technical support to them to be able to do some of these work. I mean, if you encourage people to come into the sector and there are no incentives for them to be able to operate and expand, it will be difficult, especially in an area where some of these fractions are very negative and very costly to treat. So the fund is positioned to be able to help these local recyclers and disposal facilities to be able to come up with some of these things. And we've been touring some of them to be able to acquaint ourselves with what they are doing, the nature of their problems, the kind of machinery and capacities they have currently. Then we know how to, when we roll out that project, we know how to be able to, who to be able to support, and then be able to treat some of these fractions that we've been collecting over the years. Then we also want to help, want to do some more or less research into how help them, our technical universities, or even technical TVET institutions, to be able to come up with some homegrown solutions for how to upskill some of these fractions that we are collecting. I mean, the end point is not to just collect these things, treat them, go and dump them in the landfill site. That's the last option. We need to be able to look at some of these fractions, find some homegrown solutions to them, and then we'll be able to build their capacity to upskill these things. Then we can then increase the employment level, the capacities, and all of these things that we are all looking for to improve livelihoods. And so that, from the fund side, that is very the position and what we intend to do in the coming months and years, to be able to support the industry to be able to overcome this challenge. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Jemfi. Dr. Trey, please, we want to take your perspective on that as well.
I have shared from the beginning that if you want to look at the value chain, where it is clear, and we have seen business cases for, is the collection centers. Clearly, there is a business case there. Clearly, on the transportation, there is a business case there. Currently, and I believe that with the fund administration, every collection center, based on your collection rate, if you collect 1 kilo, they pay you per that 1 kilo. So you also, as a businessman, will have to also look at your calculations. What will make me break even? And I have seen those that we have worked with, that this could be a very good area, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of business for those who are already there to be there. If the fund is paying, 11 cedis per kilo of material that is collected for your operations, if you do all the calculations, you will see that no, this is a business case for me. I have also said that if you want to look at transportation, it's also a business case. If you want to look carefully at it, what the business case is certain for all of us is that set up and obey the structures or the rules that the system has laid up. Get your permit and set up as a collection center. If you have your permit, if you have all your things and you have set up as a collection center, we are paying you an amount for the collection, the incentive, which is paid for. and we are paying you an amount for your operations, which is also paid for. I don't think that we can get it any better than what we are seeing now. Where we are still struggling and we are still looking at what would make a lot of business cases is for the recycling. And we have tried with 2 examples. We have still not gotten to the optimal yet. But I am sure in my mind that we will get there. In the first experience that we had, when we did the setup, we had somebody saying that, okay, this is very good cables, so I will even pay you and pick up the cable, and then maybe when I sell it, I can even get more profit, or when I recycle, I can even get more profit. We realized that it didn't work. We had a second option, which the person said, well, this is a negative fraction, so pay me, and then I'll be able to set up. That one also did not work. But we have not given up. We are still trying to fine-tune it to see where, at which point in time, will it make a business sense? Will it make a business case for the industry players to be able to make that business? I have said where we are struggling with, and I will not deny it. Gerard is here. I think that Doctor is here. It's got to do with the recycling. We will need public investment. We will need private investment to also come into the sector for us to see where it makes a lot of business cases, it makes a lot of business senses to really make it flow. For collection, I will encourage those who are here, who are investors, that e-waste fund will not be able to put up collection centers, but they might be able to finance the collection, pay the incentive, and pay the operations of the center. I think that it could be even a business case for even the investors, for the research institutions. Cape Coast is a big, maybe let me just use in quote, country on its own. Electronics are used there. Is there a point that Cape Coast can have a collection center that is financed from the e-waste fund by maybe paying the incentive or bringing it? How many people uses batteries for their remote controls in their rooms? How many people dispose this items of? What cases could work in there? And as I said, the fund administration is willing to finance the bulbs, the lamps that they are collecting. How many people change their lamps? How do we collect them? These are situations that we can all contribute to help build good cases for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chure. Dr. Ofori, please, over to you.
Yes. So let me just add a line or two. All the various good comments have been passed. So from my side as academia or as a higher education institution, what we bring on board, as I've been echoing from the beginning, is about curriculum. So, for instance, the Ghana Electronic Service Technician Association, GESTA, they are one association we have been working for quite some time now. There have been recent meetings to develop even short training programs and see how they can upskill their technical knowledge. So for this side, we as academia, we are ever ready to do this development to support the sector. So if we have private investors bringing in their money, they are also assured of well-trained technicians, well-trained recyclers who are also available to make sure they succeed in whatever area they invest. So as a university, this is one area that I see most of our contribution. Also, we know that it's not everybody who will be interested in electronic waste issues, but at least creating the awareness even at our level. So within our general, because as a university, we usually have common courses that everybody does. How do we incorporate circularity, electronic waste, and other waste issues into what we teach our students? That will also create some kind of awareness so that at least the sector will have that support in terms of demand, in terms of that ecosystem where we see any business in this area thriving. Then, of course, universities can also channel research into this area. And for this one, we are looking at building centers of excellence. So how do we make sure that whatever research we are doing, we also refocus into areas, for example, electronic waste designs, circularity in electronics, sustainable engineering. How do we do that? We, as a university, we have now brought the School of Sustainable Engineering. So that is one way we can begin to see our contribution in this space. So this is, I bring my submission to an end. As usual, we can enter into the Q&A session, and I will add if there's any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ofori, Dr. Chere, and Mr. Edujemfi for your very insightful submission. So at this point, we will open the floor for some questions. I think we can take about 3 or so questions. And so if there is anyone who would like to ask a question to any of our panelists or to pose a question to all three, please kindly use the raise hand function. And okay, so I see a question from, I think, Renewable Energy Engineering. You raised your hand. So if you have a question, please go ahead and pose your question. Okay, so you type it out instead. Okay, that's fine. So I guess if anyone else has a question, kindly raise your hand and we will call you to ask a question whilst we wait for our first question to be typed in the chat box.
Hello?
Yes, Eben.
Thank you. I just want to ask from our panelists the ethical area of concern where we have collection centers would depend on individuals to bring these items. It's happening in other aspects of being in some villages that I work in. You realize that it is indirectly creating ethical problems in the sense that some of the youth are attracted to the money they will get when they bring these items to the collection centers, and so they go to the extent of trying to steal, go to people's places, and they do everything to try to take away an item that can be sent to the collection center. How do we deal with that? I think as we think through all this, good as it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eben, for your question. I think this is a very good question. So I don't know if maybe Dr. Tre, if you may want to answer this.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that I should have left this for Greenard also to answer, because you have an experience in this. How we've dealt with some of these issues in the past. Mr. Eben, thank you very much, and I think that this is very, very important. As I sit here, I was trying to put up a small house for myself, and I wired the house completely, and before I could say Jack, somebody had gone in there and removed all my cables from my house. So what I can really identify with what you are saying. Typically, what we saw in the beginning when we started this process was that we were getting some items that are fully brand new items. You see them and you see that this is new. This is either stolen or something. There were times that we were also seeing people bringing in huge kilograms or tons of material. So what we did was that if you are bringing us, we set a limit because we are trying to deal with the problem of the informal sector, their livelihood. So we said that for an informal sector, the maximum that you can bring in a day is about 100 kilos. So you cannot bring anything beyond 100 kilos. If you are bringing us also materials that are fairly new, that all we suspect, we ask you to provide a backing receipt, a proof of where the material is coming from, so that we don't purchase materials that could be stolen items. I don't think that we have gotten there yet, because we still see some of these things coming up. And as a facility permitted under EPA regulations, we are also mindful. And please, let's also bear in mind that all this material do not end up at some of these permitted facilities. There are also some facilities that buy some of these illegal materials directly. We have tried in one way or the other also to make sure that these scrap dealers who are going around doing some of these things, we try to put them into associations. So you go to Kufredia and we have the Eastern Regional Scrap Dealers Association, so that they can also have some identity. We have tried to even give them some ID cards that will make them to be movable. So these are things that we are putting in place. And you see, despite the negative aspect that we all see about the stealing, there are most of them too, or some of them too, that are of genuine minds, that are genuine too. However, because they all don't have identity, we tend to classify all of them as the same. So, Eben, I would not say that we've gotten there yet to nip it in the bud, but we've taken some steps. We also want to indicate that it might not be everything that we will put incentive on it. There are some aspects that we will want to ask that when you look at it, it's a service to community, service to environment. Maybe we give room so that people can bring it on their own without putting monetary incentive to it. Where we have issues with is that individual homes may not have collection centers that they can take up their items to directly. So they want to deal with this condemn people. But if we were to get investments, if we were to get people investing in the area and establishing these collection centers, maybe if we have a take-back scheme, a take-back system, where you can take back your TV, you can take back your items directly to a shop and get something out of it, that is where we are all thinking that we should go. That Melcom could have a center at their facility, that if I buy even electronic, which is not a product of Melcom, and the thing has come to its end of life, I can take it to any of these collection centers and get even a rebate if there is a need. So these are things that we are putting in place. So I perfectly understand the question, but I would not say that we have gotten there fully yet, that we are able to prevent all the stealing or the theft issues out of it. Maybe my other colleagues can add something.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, it's very true. And there were reports of theft in some of the during our projects. So like he was saying, the banks have a system like your client or customer, KYC, where they collect almost every information about you. Now, if I am operating a collection center or a facility and you bring some items to me, I should not just be interested in the item and give you the incentive. No. I need to even pick your Ghana card. Pick your Ghana card, pick as much details as possible. Then, if possible, payment should even be channeled through mobile money system. So once this is done, I think it becomes very easy for security agencies to even track theft cases. So that when there is a theft case, it becomes very easy. So that is one way of also reducing some of these unethical practices, like people stealing appliances because they think that there is payment when they turn in appliances. Then, of course, we cannot also leave our security agencies out. They usually mount barriers and they check items and even ask questions. So I think that we have gone far in terms of identity as a country. A lot of information has been collected, SIM card registration and all these things. So all this rich data is there to help get enough information about whoever brings or collects or brings item to collection centers, so that in case of anything, these people can be tracked down.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that addition. I think we have time for just one more question. So if there's anyone who would like to take that spot and ask the question just before we wrap up. Okay. Well, I guess
Can I add to simple one? How individual
yes,
begin
please.
a participant?
Yes,
How
please
may
go
I,
ahead.
or even an institute like a school, if we want to take that project to start a collection center? Did you get my question?
No, please come again.
I'm saying that how can I, as an individual or even an institute, if interested, start a collection center?
Okay, thank you for your question.
I think Rama, you can answer him.
I can, but if you like to just take the lead on that, please.
Okay, or Koju can easily answer. Your boss can easily answer. But even I think that I would have loved that maybe EP was part of this discussion and they would have given us all the processes that is involved. I think there is a clear-cut procedure that you are supposed to that is there, that if you want to set up a collection center, you should get a permit from EP. So they'll come look at your facility where you are, and then you can, once you get a permit, you are open to start collection. We have defined items that we are collecting. Currently, we are collecting about 6 items. From the project, we are collecting cables. We are collecting mixed batteries, that is batteries from torchlight, from phones, from laptops that are not working. We collect those batteries. We collect thermoplastics, that is plastic casings from electronics. So all electronics, in fact, all the plastic casing that come from electronic materials. And then we also collect what we locally know them as TV Chikopo, the CRT, the cathode ray TVs. We collect them too, that one too. We also collect lamps, and then we collect screens. That is laptop screens, LCD TVs, plasma TVs. We collect all those ones. They all have some prices of incentive that we have set. So for each of the items, there is a price for it. So once you have your permit, you have your land location that you can collect, I think that you will receive some kind of support also from the fund administration through training, through publicity, and then you can start collection. When you collect up to a point and you have enough quantities that you have collected, you submit your materials, or you transfer or transport your materials to a holding center based in Accra. And at that holding center, you will be paid for the operations of your facility, the transportation of your items, and the money that you pay to the scrap dealers to collect them. So on 3 levels, you'll be made payment to be made to you. I hope I have answered it.
Yes. Can I add a few? Can I add a few comments to what Dr. Chair just said?
Yes, please.
Okay. So as one I think if you are interested in setting up a collection center, yeah, the one key thing you should find is the technical guidelines for the e-waste management on the EPA website. Then it will actually categorize what kind of collection center you want to operate, and then the specifications you need to satisfy thereof. However, on the support of from the fund in terms of operations, you understand, we have to make it a bit clearer that we cannot have collection centers dotted everywhere, and then the fund will have to support every operations of those collection centers. So we'll have a caveat will be in there said that we must have collection at certain locations where we do not have too many collection centers, because it's a private sector led. At least one, it also guarantees you enough volume to be able to remain sustainable. 2, the fund has unlimited funds and therefore cannot pay for every collection center that will spring up everywhere for us to support the operations. So I think I just want to make that clarity, but at least we will support collection operations at strategic and advantageous places so that we will be able to collect as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dujemfi. And thank you, Eben, for your questions. I think we've run out of time. We're quite past time now. So I would like to thank our esteemed panel members once again for their time and for their knowledge that they have shared with us this morning. I think for me, the 3 key things that I am taking away from this conversation is that there is business opportunity in the e-waste economy in Ghana, and that we need private sector investment, private sector involvement. We also need homegrown solutions on how we can deal with the hazardous fractions that are currently posing a bit of a challenge in managing, and then also how we can integrate e-waste management into our curriculum, especially at the TVET level. And so without much to do, I would like to say a very big thank you once again to our panel members, and also to you, our participants, for joining in the conversation, as we wouldn't have a conversation without you. So thank you once again, and please be sure to follow us on our social media handles, which is on your screen at the moment. So follow us at Green Advocacy Ghana. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and also on TikTok to keep abreast of when next we'll be having a webinar or any other exciting information that we have to share. So thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of your day.